and welcome back to Stelika Review's World of Tanks. Today we are going to be looking at a tank that I feel is not really so much underestimated as it is misunderstood. I am, of course, maybe not, who am I to judge, talking about the SU-152, or as I would have loved to rename it in the World of Tanks, the SU-122. Because not only is the whole derp gameplay something I find completely lacking in anything even remotely interesting, the top 122mm gun on this beast makes it an unstoppable killing machine in the right situation. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here, so let's start out with what's bad about the tank, shall we? So what is bad? Well, as most of you probably know, mostly everything beyond the guns are average or bad. Let's start with the armor. Coming from the SU-100, you are effectively losing armor due to the massive difference in sloping the two tanks have. You are at this point essentially a driving massive box with so little armor, even on the front, that you might as well have written "Eat me" in big capital letters on the side. With minimal sloping all around the tank and 75mm on the front and 60 on the sides and rear, you are essentially a driving, turning XP pinata there to feed the enemy team. All's not lost, however, since you do have one major hardpoint on the tank, namely the gun mantlets. Clocking in at 130mm, even dead on, with great sloping on all sides of it, this is your single line of defense. Something you hopefully already learned to take full advantage of in the SU-100, since it had the same idea. I've lost count of the times that I've turned the tank in behind a corner, baiting the enemy to fire on my well-armored mantlet, and giving me the initiative in the fight beyond that point. Beyond that, however, your not inconsiderable tracks can absorb quite a few shots, however never depend on it for side scraping, since most people will simply fire at your hull rather than the tracks. When talking about the armor profile on this tank destroyer, you would quite often want to know the camo values of the tank as well, since many people use these tanks as snipers, and while they're not bad, I can't exactly say that they're so very good either, being in front of the German Jagdpanther, the Sturry Mill, the British AT-15 and the American T-28 HTC, but being worse than literally any other Tier 7 tank destroyer. Yes, it's even worse than the walking, talking bunker AT-7, not by great amount, but still, that's rather atrocious. Lastly, armor is useless if you don't have any health to give off. However, in this department, the SU-152 is quite blessed, with its 870 HP putting it behind the British bunkers, but not all that much else. If you can't bounce anything, it's at least nice to be able to survive a couple of shots in a pinch. So what about the mobility? Is it a fast, agile tank destroyer capable of moving around the battlefield rapidly, taking advantage positions to compensate for its lack of armor? Well, sadly, no. At 43 kilometers forwards and a specific power of 13, it is by no means slow in the grand scheme of things. However, the only slower of its tire is the British tank bunkers, which we really shouldn't be looking at to begin with, and then the Sturry Mill, that really isn't that much better, right? If you were to be fair, however, its speed is definitely decent, allowing it enough mobility to get to where you need to go and to respond quickly to movement of enemy tanks in your general vicinity, allowing for peekaboo tactics that can really save you when you are one against many. It is also quite capable of outrunning some of the slower heavy tanks and tank destroyers it'll go up against, which is certainly a valid tactic for a tank that is basically a gun on wheels. Its agility is nothing to write home about, however, leaving it extremely vulnerable to being flanked and simply being too slow to do anything against it. This, however, is symptomatic for all the Tier 7 tank destroyers, with the notable exceptions of the E-25. So, now that I've talked about all that's bad about the tank, how about we talk about all that's good? And in this case, it's the guns. Oh man, the guns. It gets a choice of 3. Notice my sarcasm there. It really only got one proper gun to choose. The stock gun is where it gets its name from. The giant 152mm derp cannon. And in my opinion, those who say this is what makes the tank can go fly a kite. The derp is a typical, inaccurate, long reload, HE firing piece of shit that literally only works when the enemy makes mistakes. I could not describe to you my hatred of that gun. After grinding with that gun for just a few rounds, I free experienced the better guns on the spot and haven't looked back since. Seriously, if you want to go around with a giant derp gun, at least take the KV-2 and escape the hell of being put against Tier 9s armed with nothing but piss and a bucket of your tears in your hands. However, Looking beyond the awful, just awful derp gun, are the guns beyond it worth anything? You're damn right they are! This is what I don't get. I remember first hearing about the SU-152 and even meeting them on the battlefield. Literally all of them was using the 152mm gun, so I just assumed it was the better choice on the tank. However, that could not be farther from the truth. It has two guns beyond the derp, with the second just being a flat upgrade from the first. So how good are the second gun? Oh, I don't know. How about it actually makes the SU-152 the second highest damage dealing tank in the game? Only beaten by the Tortoise at tier 9. I checked. I literally checked every tier 7 to 10 tank, since I just couldn't believe it. But it's true. There are a couple of tanks that are close to it, like the T-57 Heavy and the Waffle Tractor E-100, but they don't output more than it does. At 3,300 damage per minute, this is a tank that will rip any tanks it meets to shreds in seconds if allowed to. Think about it. There is not a tank in the game that would not be dead after minutes of being shot at from an SU-152. Hell, most tanks wouldn't even survive 40. I have quite often been capable of simply out-DPSing tanks at the end of the match. They are in a heavy tank and they think they can kill the lowly SU-152 with their big health pool, even if they just sit there, and before they know it, they are mincemeat. The gun also got great dispersion control, allowing you to be quite mobile between your shots with little to no aiming time required after even moving your tracks. And if you're immobile, you can fire with maximum accuracy as long as you please. Its penetration are, however, sadly, on the low end at 175. When you come up against E75s and the like, you are probably going to run into situations where it'll be in your best interest to use premium armor for those extra 40mm of penetration it gives you, putting it at 217. Not brilliant, but definitely enough. Hell, for the most part, in most situations you won't be needing the premium ammo, since the gun is fast firing and precise enough that it really won't matter in anything other than a mano fight, like a corner fight against a side-scraping E75. If you don't just outright lose in that situation, you probably want premium ammo. So, what is the end result here? We have a tank, an absolute beast of a damage dealer that is rather weak in everything else, making it something of a niche tank. You're not going to be able to outlast proper carry tanks in this thing. However, you are going to be making mincemeat of the enemy team in the right positions, which is as a supporting tank to your heavies and mediums, or as a concealed sniping tank, taking shots of opportunity and catching the enemy unawares with your simply gorgeous damage output. This is one of the tanks I enjoy playing the absolute most. Sure, you can get into matches where you simply can't do anything to win, since this isn't really a tank capable of outplaying a smart enemy forever. However, when you do get into good matches, you can be the deciding factor between a loss and a win, not with damage absorbed or enemies distracted, but in the sheer carnage of blood and steel your gun will inflict on the enemy team. I certainly hope you enjoyed my review of the SU-152 and that I changed your opinion of it. However, I was thinking, how about you guys tell me what tanks you would like me to review instead of me just choosing some random tanks that I like? Bear in mind that I don't have every tank, far from it, but still that might be a great idea. So why don't you leave a comment down below telling me what tank you would like me to play? And with that, it is time to say goodnight for this time. Please remember to vote, comment and subscribe. Have a nice evening.